Sophie was standing in front of the mirror in the hallway, adjusting the strap on her red dress. She gave her reflection a little smirk as she grabbed her purse, barely even looking my way. Then, just like it was nothing, she dropped the words that flipped my world upside down. "I've got a date tonight. Try not to get too jealous." For a second, I just stared, thinking maybe I'd misheard her. I tried to tell myself it was some kind of weird joke, her way of being playful or sarcastic. But the way she shifted her weight and avoided my eyes told me otherwise. She meant it. I grabbed onto the edge of the kitchen counter, my thoughts spinning, trying to piece together what I'd just heard. "Sorry, what did you just say?" I finally asked, my voice surprisingly calm. She let out a sigh, already acting like she was done with the whole conversation. "You heard me," she said, flipping her hair back like she was brushing off some dust. "I've got plans tonight, with someone else." It wasn't just what she said, it was how easily she said it. Like it was no big deal. Like it was totally normal to put on the dress I bought her, and then casually announce she was heading out to see another guy. That word, date, hit me like a slow, dull punch to the chest. I should have spoken up, should have demanded to know what was going on. But all I could do was stand there, realizing that maybe I didn't know her as well as I thought I did. "So, what, you expect me to just accept this?" I asked, trying to keep my breath steady. She gave another smirk, but this one felt colder than before. "I expect you to be mature about it," she said, like she was explaining something obvious. "We've been together a long time. Marriage gets dull. I just want to see what else is out there." I let out a dry chuckle that held no real humor. My heart was pounding, but from the outside, you'd think I was fine. Too fine. "Let me get this straight," I said, keeping my voice even. "You're just dating someone else now? No heads up, no concern for how I'd feel about it?" She shrugged, like I'd asked her what time it was. "You would have found out eventually. So why hide it?" she added. "It's not like I'm leaving you." There wasn't a hint of apology in her voice. Not even hesitation. She'd already made up her mind. And now it was on me to figure out what I was going to do about it. Something told me that by the end of the night, that smirk of hers was going to disappear. She just kept adjusting her dress in the mirror, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on our marriage with a few careless words and a shrug. She was headed out, on a date, with another man. You'd think that kind of thing would send my blood boiling, make me explode. But weirdly enough, I felt calm. Almost too calm. My thoughts had never been clearer. Part of me expected the rage to come rushing in like a tidal wave. Expected to feel the walls shaking from it. But it didn't come. Not yet. Instead, it was like I woke up for the first time in years. I'd spent so long drifting through life comfortably, never asking questions, never doubting anything. I wasn't the suspicious type. Never went through her phone, never interrogated her about where she'd been. I trusted her. I had no reason not to. Until that moment. Sophie turned back toward me with an irritated sigh, clearly annoyed that I wasn't reacting the way she had hoped. "What?" she asked, switching her purse to the other shoulder. "You're acting weird." Weird. That almost made me laugh out loud. Actually, I might have let out a little dry chuckle without realizing it. Then I asked her, plain and simple, "How long?" My voice came out calm. Too calm. She blinked, confused. "How long what?" I held my gaze steady, letting the silence stretch. "How long has this been going on?" She rolled her eyes like I was asking something ridiculous. Like I'd just asked what was for dinner or something. "Don't start with that," she said, waving me off. I looked her straight in the eye. "It's not a big deal," she added. Not a big deal. Those words bounced around in my head, echoing like I couldn't quite believe she'd said them. My hand gripped the back of the chair, knuckles white. "Not a big deal," I repeated slowly. "You're walking out that door to meet another man. Letting him hold you the way I used to. And that's not a big deal." And for the first time that night, I saw something flicker in her eyes. A little crack in the armor. A flash of guilt that barely made it to the surface. But just like that, it vanished. She rolled her shoulders back and put on that smug, collected look again. "I never said it didn't matter," she replied, her voice smooth and controlled. "I'm just saying this is how life works. People grow. Relationships change. And honestly, you should be glad I'm being upfront with you." Glad. That word hit harder than I expected. I looked at her differently then. Took in the way she was looking at me, not with sadness, not with hesitation. Just detachment. Like she was already gone. Like this talk was just one last step in a plan she'd already put in motion. And that's when it hit me, she'd been preparing for this. Maybe not this exact night, But the moment itself, the one where she stopped pretending, where she finally said it out loud, where it became real. I stepped forward slowly. She didn't move, didn't even blink. I said it quietly, "You're not the woman I married." Her smirk widened, like she'd been waiting to hear those words. "Of course not," she said with a shrug, her tone almost playful. "People change." "I've changed," she said, almost casually. "Maybe you should too." She might as well have been talking to a stranger. Like I was the one being unreasonable for having a reaction at all. I exhaled through my nose, trying to keep everything under control. "So what exactly do you expect me to do with this, Sophie?" She raised an eyebrow like the answer was obvious. "I expect you to accept it." She glanced at her watch, like she was just checking off another item on her evening to-do list. Like this wasn't a bomb she'd just dropped, but just a quick detour before a night of fun. Her mind was already gone. Somewhere else. With someone else. And in that moment, mine was made up too. I stood up straighter, let my hands fall open at my sides. "Go." That one word stopped her in her tracks. Her head tilted slightly. Her lips parted like she'd misheard. "You're okay with this?" she asked, confused. I gave her a small smile, but not the kind she was used to. Not soft, not loving. This one had steel behind it. "No," I said calmly. "But you've already decided what you're going to do." I met her eyes. Now it's my turn. For the first time that night, I saw her flinch. Just a little. Her fingers twitched at her side. She hesitated. She looked nervous, and I liked that. But she didn't say anything else. Just turned and walked out like she had somewhere better to be. And just like that, the door closed behind her, leaving behind a silence that felt almost alive. I didn't yell, didn't break anything, didn't chase after her. I just stood there, listening to the quiet, letting it settle around me like dust in an abandoned house. She thought she had control of this story. She thought she held the pin. But she was wrong. She didn't know what was coming next. And by the time I was done, that smirk she loved to flash, it wouldn't be coming back. The house didn't feel like home anymore. That kind of silence, it seeps into your bones. Makes familiar places feel foreign. Haunted. "I'm off on a date. Try not to be too jealous." That line kept echoing in my head, looping like some bad song stuck on repeat. Each time it played, it hit a little harder. I looked around at everything we'd built. Photos on the wall. Her perfume still hanging faintly in the air. The coffee mug she'd left on the counter that morning, half full. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I sank into a dining chair, rubbed my temples, and just sat there as my mind ran in every direction. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Years? How long had I been walking through life with my eyes closed, thinking we were just a normal couple working through life's mess? I wanted to be furious. Wanted to throw something. Scream. Cry. Anything. But I didn't feel any of that. What I felt was clear. She made her move. And now, for once, I had one too. Most guys in my shoes would have confronted her, demanded the truth, maybe even begged for some kind of explanation. But that's exactly what she wanted, a scene. She wanted fireworks. She wanted me broken, pathetic, proving her right. But I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. Instead, I reached for my phone and dialed. Not her. That would have been too easy. I called someone I hadn't talked to in a while. "Hey," I said when the line clicked on. A short pause. Then came a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. "Lucas." It was my brother. No drama between us. Just time and distance. He'd moved away, built a different life. Meanwhile, I stayed put, settled into the routine. Work, bills, marriage. The usual grind. "I need a favor," I said, straight to the point. Another pause. "What kind of favor?" I hesitated for a second, gripping the phone just a little tighter. "I just need to get out of here." He breathed out on the other end. "You okay?" Was I? Not really. But I wasn't about to dump it all over the phone. Not really, I admitted. But I will be. There was a beat of silence. Then, "Come on over." I didn't even think twice. I ended the call, grabbed my keys, and walked out. Didn't lock the door behind me. Because, honestly, I didn't know if I was coming back. The drive to Lucas's felt longer than I remembered. Too much road. Too much quiet. Too many thoughts piling up in my head. Sophie was never one for ordinary. She always needed more attention, more excitement, more of everything. Maybe I'd been blind. Or maybe I just told myself I was enough for her. But now I knew the truth. I wasn't. By the time I pulled into Lucas's driveway, I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't going to chase her. Wasn't going to waste another breath trying to fight for a woman who mentally checked out of our marriage long before she ever walked out that front door tonight. No, I was going to do something she never saw coming. I was going to let her go. And deep down, I had a feeling she'd regret that more than I ever would. I didn't go straight to the door. Just sat there for a few minutes, engine humming in the silence of the street. Everything felt off. This wasn't how the night was supposed to go. I should have been back home, maybe half watching a late-night show while Sophie scrolled through her phone beside me. Maybe we'd talk. Maybe we wouldn't. Just another quiet night together. But instead, I was here, alone in my car, outside my brother's place, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I gripped the steering wheel, hard. A part of me wanted to turn around, go home, and pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't do that, not anymore. Sophie had made sure of that. She didn't just want to hurt me. She wanted me to feel small, powerless. That's what the smirk was about. That cold, smug look she gave me as she walked out the door. She thought she was writing the ending to our story, that I'd just sit back and let it happen. But she was wrong. I wasn't going to be the pathetic, heartbroken husband waiting by the window. I finally stepped out of the car and walked up to the door. Knocked twice. Lucas opened it almost right away, wearing a hoodie and old sweatpants, his eyes wide like I'd just appeared out of nowhere. "Well, this is unexpected," he said, stepping aside to let me in. I walked in slowly, taking in the place. Same leather couch. Same coffee table stacked with the books he'd never finish. Same faint smell of old coffee and dust. It had been over a year since I was last here. Yet somehow, it felt more familiar than my own house. Lucas shut the door and looked me over, arms crossed. "Waiting." "All right," he said. "What's going on?" I sighed and ran a hand through my hair. "Sophie is cheating on me." The words felt heavy in my mouth. Foreign. Like they didn't belong to me. Lucas's face tightened. "Are you sure?" I gave a bitter little laugh. "She told me herself." He blinked. "She told you?" "Not like she was sorry," I said. "More like she was proud of it." I paused. She put on a dress, looked me dead in the eye, and said she was going on a date. Just like that. No shame. Like she was telling me what she wanted for dinner. Lucas let out a low whistle. "Dang. Yeah." I sank onto the couch. He stayed quiet for a moment, just sat across from me, tapping his fingers on his knee. Then finally, he asked, "So what now?" That was the question I'd been waiting for. The one that split everything wide open. Betrayal knocks the wind out of you. Leaves you empty. But after the shock fades, you're left with a choice. You either stay the victim, or you take back control. I looked up at him. "I'm not chasing her," I said. "Not fighting. Not begging. I'm done." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Just like that?" I nodded. "What's the alternative? Sit around while she's out with someone else? Keep pretending we're still something we're not?" He let that settle for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, you're right. She doesn't deserve that." "No, she doesn't," I agreed. But it didn't make it feel any lighter. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was how casually she'd done it. Like it meant nothing. She hadn't just cheated. She looked me in the eye and dared me to care. That wasn't just infidelity. That was cold. Calculated. "She planned this," I said aloud, almost to myself. Lucas frowned. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "She didn't just wake up today and decide to cheat. She's been pulling away for months. Late nights. Excuses. Snapping over nothing. Acting like I wasn't even there. This wasn't spur of the moment," I added. "It was a setup. A slow, quiet build-up to make me feel like the problem. Like I drove her away." Lucas leaned back, his face darkening. That realization should have crushed me. But it didn't. It made me angry. Because now I wasn't just some guy who got cheated on. I was a man who'd been quietly erased, bit by bit, by someone who thought she was smarter than me. And she thought I'd just accept it. Just as I opened my mouth to say more, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced down, and my stomach twisted when I saw the name on the screen. "Sophie." Lucas leaned forward. "You gonna answer that?" I stared at the message for a long moment before unlocking my phone. "Hey, don't wait up. I might be late." I laughed. A real laugh. Short, sharp, almost like a cough. Bitter enough to cut through the silence. She still thought she was in charge. Lucas leaned in to glance at the screen. "She's really just all in, huh?" "Yeah." I slid the phone back into my pocket. But so am I. What Sophie didn't know, what she couldn't even imagine, was that when she came home, she wouldn't be returning to the same life she walked out on. She made her choice. Now, it was my turn to make mine. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry or heartbroken. Those feelings had already burned out. What was left was colder, sharper, focused. I was thinking, planning. And by the time the first morning light crept in through the blinds of Lucas's guest room, I had a plan. A real one. Sophie had spent months slowly, carefully pulling away, all while believing she was holding the cards. But what she didn't see coming, what she never expected, was that, for the first time in our marriage, I was the one pulling the strings. And the first move I made that morning? I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Within the hour, I was sitting across from a man who looked like he'd eaten 3 weaker attorneys for breakfast. His name was Tom Hardy, and everything about him screamed confidence. Even his tie looked like it could win a courtroom battle on its own. So, Tom said, flipping through the folder I brought, "Your wife's having an affair, and she thinks you're just gonna, what? Sit at home and wait for her." "Seems like it," I said. Tom smirked. "People like her always think they're untouchable until they're not." Yeah, I liked him already. I laid it all out for him. The way Sophie smirked at me when she said she was going on a date. The emotional distance. The arrogance. The complete lack of guilt. Tom listened quietly, nodding every now and then. Then he leaned back and looked me dead in the eye. "This can work in your favor," he said. "You haven't confronted her. She still thinks she's got the upper hand. That's good. Let her believe that. The less she suspects, the cleaner this'll go." I let out a long breath. I hadn't even realized how much tension I'd been carrying until that moment. This was it. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was acting. That evening, I pulled into the driveway and walked back into the house. I half expected it to feel different, maybe emptier, maybe colder. But it didn't. It felt the same. Because I was the same. She was the one who changed. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. Her perfume still hung in the air, soft and floral, a reminder of how she smiled at me before walking out to be with someone else. I walked through the house, taking it all in. The framed pictures on the walls. The neat little bookshelves. That throw blanket she always curled up in, still draped over the arm of the couch. Everything looked fine. But underneath, the whole thing was already falling apart. Then I heard it. The sound of her key in the door. Sophie walked in, tossed her purse on the counter like she hadn't just shattered our marriage less than a day ago. And when she looked up and saw me standing there, she froze. "Oh," she said. "You're home." She hadn't expected that. Not at all. I leaned against the kitchen island, casual. Calm. Where else would I be? She watched me closely. Trying to read me. Trying to see if I was about to break. About to lose it. About to beg. I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I tilted my head. "How was your date?" Her expression faltered, just for a split second, but she quickly covered it up with a sugary smile. "It was great. Thanks for asking." I nodded like I cared. Then motioned toward the dining table, where a clean stack of papers sat waiting. Her eyes followed my hand. And when she saw what was there, that smug little smile disappeared. "What's this?" she asked, slowly. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to feel it. Let the silence wrap around her like a noose. Finally, I said it. Calm and clear. "Divorce papers." She blinked. "What?" "Figured I'd save you the trouble," I added, still leaning on the counter. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out at first. She hadn't prepared for this. She was braced for tears. A fight. A last-ditch plea to fix things. She wasn't ready for me to be the one ending it. "You're serious?" she asked, her voice lower now. I nodded. Completely. She let out a breathless, humorless laugh. "So that's it? You're just done?" I pretended to think about it for a second, then smiled. "Yep." She stared at me, really stared, and for the first time since this mess began, I saw it. Panic. She had been so sure I'd chase her. So sure I'd fight. That I'd break. But she underestimated me. And now she realized it. But it was too late. I turned and headed up the stairs, leaving her standing there, frozen in silence. Because she wasn't worth another second of my time. Sophie didn't say a word as I walked past her, but I felt her eyes on me. The tension between us was thick, almost heavy, like the sky right before a thunderstorm. Then I heard it. That little catch in her breath. The tremble in her exhale. The kind of sound people make when they realize the ground beneath them isn't as solid as they thought. But I didn't stop. I didn't even glance back. I kept walking up the stairs, step by step, the sound echoing through the house. Our house. At least for a little while longer. When I reached the bedroom, I shut the door and locked it. Not because I was scared of her, but because I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a conversation. She already said everything she needed to when she smirked at me and walked out that door. Anything after that? Didn't matter. I sat down on the edge of the bed and let out a slow breath. The day had been long, emotionally draining in a way I hadn't expected. But still, there was something liberating about it. I had made a decision, and she knew it. That alone shifted the power. For once, I was the one holding the cards. From downstairs, I heard her moving around. She hadn't left. Not yet. She was still there, probably trying to figure out how to spin this. That was her specialty, reframing things, twisting the truth, rewriting the story so she came out looking clean. But this time, she had no leverage. I pulled out my phone and opened my texts. Found the thread with Tom. Make sure she doesn't suspect anything until it's finalized. I smiled to myself. She didn't suspect a thing. Then came a knock on the door. I didn't answer. Another knock. Harder this time. Still, I didn't move. Then came her voice. James? I closed my eyes for a second. She only used my full name when she wanted something. What? I said, my voice flat. There was a pause. Can we talk? I let out a quiet sigh and shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. Talk? Now she wanted to talk? I had given her every chance before. Every opportunity to tell me the truth. To speak up if something was wrong. To be honest about what she wanted. But instead, she chose to treat me like I didn't matter. Like I was just a placeholder in my own marriage. And now, the second she realized I wasn't chasing after her, suddenly, she wanted a conversation. Typical. I stood up, unlocked the door, but I didn't open it. If she wanted to talk, it'd be on my terms. But the second the lock clicked, she pushed the door open and walked in. She looked different now. The arrogance she wore like armor earlier was gone. In its place was something I hadn't seen from her in a long time. Uncertainty. Good. She folded her arms, tilted her head, still trying to hold on to control. So, you're just ending things? I looked her in the eye. Steady. Calm. Yeah. She let out a breath, shaking her head like she couldn't believe this was happening. Come on, James. This is ridiculous. I almost laughed. Ridiculous? She had walked out of here like she was off to a victory parade. Like cheating was just another Wednesday night activity. And now, this was ridiculous? I crossed my arms. What exactly do you think is ridiculous? That I'm not begging you to stay? That I'm not groveling for your attention? Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. For once, she didn't have a scripted comeback. I thought we had an understanding, she finally muttered. Softer now. I raised an eyebrow. An understanding? She sighed, like she was tired of having to explain the obvious. Marriage isn't black and white, James. It's not some fairy tale where two people stay completely devoted to each other forever. People change. They evolve. She paused, searching for the right words. I just thought you'd be open-minded. I shook my head and let out a dry, humorless laugh. Let me get this straight. You think marriage means you get to spend time with other people while I sit at home and wait like a fool? She frowned. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. For the first time, I saw it, that tiny flicker of frustration in her eyes. The cracks in the image she tried so hard to maintain. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she muttered. I took a step forward. My voice dropped, calm but cutting. No, Sophie. You made this harder the moment you decided I wasn't worth the truth. Her jaw tightened. And that mask she always wore? It was starting to fall apart. So what now? We just throw away everything we built. I tilted my head a little. You already did. She flinched. It was subtle, but I caught it. And honestly, I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not pity. Just tired. That kind of deep-down exhaustion that crawls into your bones when you've finally had enough. The divorce is happening, I said, steady as ever. If you want to act like this blindsided you, be my guest. But don't stand there and pretend this wasn't your choice. The silence between us stretched out, thick and heavy. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out of the room. And this time, I didn't watch her go. I didn't care anymore. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't clinging to something that had already died a long time ago. Whatever we had, it didn't make it this far. I just didn't want to admit it until now. The moment she left, everything settled on my chest. But it wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even regret. It was freedom. I ran a hand down my face, exhaling slowly. The house was quiet, aside from the soft sounds of her moving around downstairs, the clink of a glass, the shuffle of her shoes on the floor. Little signs of someone trying to process what they never thought would happen. In her mind, I was supposed to chase after her. I was supposed to beg, to plead, to throw out every last shred of dignity just to convince her to stay. Because Sophie truly believed she still had that kind of power over me. But she never once considered that I might have already let her go. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back just a little. Outside, the street looked the same as always. Streetlights glowing. Empty sidewalks. Quiet houses. It was strange how normal the world looked, considering mine had just flipped. Then I heard her voice. Muffled. Low. But I recognized the tone. She was on the phone. At first, I didn't care enough to listen. I'd spent way too much time caring about what came out of her mouth. But something about how she sounded made me pause. It wasn't smug. It wasn't confident. It wasn't dripping with that same condescending charm she'd used all night. No, this voice was shaken. I moved to the bedroom door and cracked it open just enough to hear. I don't know, she whispered, almost panicked. He's not reacting the way I thought he would. I froze. My hand tightened around the doorknob, and I felt something cold sink into my gut. Who was she talking to? Why did she sound nervous? A frustrated sigh followed. No, I didn't think he'd be happy about it. But I figured he'd at least put up a fight. Her voice dipped lower, soft now, unsure. He just agreed. It's like he doesn't even care. She paused. Then, quietly, almost like she was talking to herself. What if I miscalculated? I nearly laughed. Miscalculated? That was the smartest thing she'd said all night. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, just listening. Silence. Then she exhaled sharply again. No, he doesn't know. Why would I tell him? That would ruin everything. I didn't blink. Then she said it. I'll handle it. Just stick to the plan. The plan. Of course there was a plan. There was always a plan with Sophie. She didn't do things spontaneously, not like this. This wasn't just a random decision fueled by boredom or restlessness. No, this was strategic. Planned out. I was never supposed to react like this. I was supposed to break. I was supposed to lose it. Get loud. Get reckless. So caught up in the heartbreak that I'd never noticed what was really going on. Too bad for her. I wasn't the man she thought I was. I stepped back from the door, my breathing calm, my pulse steady. And for the first time in a long time, my head was clear. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This was chess. And she thought she was the only one who knew how to play. I turned, walked back to the bed, and picked up my phone. If she had a plan. It was time I made one of my own. One she'd never see coming. Over the past few days, I had been watching her. Carefully. Quietly. Putting the pieces together. She thought I was clueless, that I was just sitting around stewing in heartbreak. But I saw it. The way she hovered around her phone like it held all her secrets. The way she'd start to speak and then pull back. Hesitant. Nervous. That wasn't like her. And suddenly, she was staying home more. Like she was waiting for something. Maybe waiting for me to finally explode. To lash out. To give her the meltdown she needed to justify whatever came next. But I gave her nothing. And that scared her. Because I didn't act like the heartbroken husband. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. And the longer I stayed silent, the more her plan started to unravel. I was calm. And people like Sophie? They don't know what to do with calm. I let her sit in it for 4 full days. Then, on the 5th, I made my move. I waited until she left the house, then picked up the phone and made a few calls. I met with Tom again, tying off the final details of the divorce. And thanks to his sharp mind and years of experience, not a single thing was in our favor. The house? Mine. The assets? Mine. The evidence of her affair? Neatly tucked into a folder that made sure she'd never stand a chance in court. By the time I was finished, there was no backdoor left. No lifeline. No bargaining chip. She had walked straight into the very trap she'd been building for me. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, waiting. A single glass of whiskey in front of me. My keys resting on the counter like a period at the end of a sentence. Then the front door creaked open. Sophie walked in, and the moment her eyes landed on me, she froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. That hesitation. She was nervous. Good. I nodded toward the chair across from me. Sit. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She sat down slowly, like she was still trying to read me. I watched her. The tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers tapped anxiously on the table. She was waiting for the explosion. What she didn't realize was that she was already standing in the blast zone. I slid the folder across the table toward her. She stared at it. What's this? She asked. Open it. She hesitated, then reached out and flipped it open. The moment her eyes landed on the first page, her entire body stilled. "You've been planning this," I said, leaning back in my chair, voice even. Figured it was only fair that I had a plan too. Her throat bobbed. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the paper. "This is," she started. "Divorce papers," I said, cutting her off. "Finalized. And since I was the one cheated on, I made sure they work in my favor." Her lips parted slightly, and that's when I saw it. Not sadness. Not anger. Fear. She never thought she'd lose. She never thought I'd be the one in control. She started, but I raised a hand. "Don't," I said, firm. "I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't care what your plan was. I don't even care who he is." I leaned in just a little. My voice dropped low. "I just care that you get out of my house." She flinched, barely. But I caught that too. "James," she breathed. "This was your choice," I reminded her. "You wanted freedom? You've got it. You wanted to date around? Congratulations." I gestured to the door. "You can do that somewhere else." She blinked, fast and panicked. Her hands curled into tight fists. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, cold now. "You thought I was weak. That I'd fight for you. That I'd cry and scream and play my part in whatever little script you had written." I tilted my head. "But you miscalculated." Silence fell, thick and heavy. Then, finally, she let out this shaky laugh. Bitter. Hollow. The sound of someone who just realized they bet everything and lost it all. She shook her head slowly. "I guess I did." I stood up and grabbed my keys. "Pack your things," I told her. "You're leaving tonight." She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just nodded, staring down at those papers like she still couldn't believe how it all turned out. She thought she held all the power, that she could run the game and walk away clean. But in the end, she played herself. And me? I walked out that door without looking back. But that wasn't the end, because while she packed up her things, I still had one more thread to pull. Did I let the guy who took my wife wreck my marriage and just walk away like nothing happened? Not a chance. So I did what any man in my position would do. I called Tom. He'd been my lawyer for years. But more than that, he was connected. The kind of connected that didn't rely on courtrooms to get answers. I sat across from him in his dimly lit office and leaned in, my voice low. "I need to know who he is." Tom nodded, calm as ever, like he'd been expecting it. "I figured you'd ask," he said. "Give me a few days." I met his eyes. "And if I want more than just a name?" He studied me for a second, then drummed his fingers against the edge of the desk. "We'll talk. After you get the name." For days later, I was back in that office. Tom lit a cigar, took a slow puff, then slid a folder across the desk like it weighed nothing. "Michael Taylor," he said simply. I picked up the folder and flipped through it. There he was, late 30s, slick back hair, sharp suit, smug expression. The kind of guy who thought rules didn't apply to him. The kind of guy who treated wrecking homes like a hobby. "Where does he work?" I asked. "Finance firm downtown," Tom replied. "Senior analyst." Then he added, almost like an afterthought, "And get this, he's married. 2 kids." I let out a low chuckle. "So he ruins lives on his lunch break." Tom took a slow drag of his cigar, exhaled, and leaned back in his chair. "Looks like it." Then, after a pause, he glanced at me. "For a little extra, I can make sure he regrets getting involved with another man's wife." I met his eyes. "How much extra?" He named a figure. It wasn't cheap, but peace of mind rarely is. I didn't flinch. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a check, and slid it across the desk. "Make him regret it." Tom gave a small smirk, tucked the check into his drawer, and nodded. "Consider it done." 3 days later, the news came in. Michael got jumped just outside his office, late at night, right as he was heading to his car. They took his wallet, his watch, and made sure he felt the consequences. He spent a week in the hospital. I didn't visit, of course, but I heard he wouldn't be involved in any more marriages falling apart anytime soon. Sophie, though, she wasn't done. She tried to fight the divorce. She dragged it out for 6 long months, clinging to every scrap of control she thought she still had. She accused me of infidelity, tried to argue about the assets, even had the nerve to go after spousal support. Tom tore through her like a wolf through raw meat. Every lie, every manipulation, every dirty little secret she thought she'd buried. He brought it all to light in court, laid it out clean and cold, like a well-prepared feast for the judge. By the time he was done, she had nothing left. The ruling came down swift and solid. I got the house. I got the assets. And Sophie? She got nothing. She packed up and left town not long after. Word is she moved to Cleveland. Looking for a fresh start, I guess. But me? I didn't care. For the first time in a long, long time, I felt free. Dear listeners, let me know what you think down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.